very big mojo of dealing with this sort of a muddled environment, which is by the day, maybe sometimes morning and nights are looking different. I handle a region which is Middle East, Africa, Turkey, Southeast Asia, absolutely polar opposite in terms of rhythm, culture, different folks, different reactions. Situations are pretty similar. We want to get to price increase and surcharge and whatever you have there on the rack, everything is in the market today in action now. What he said is absolutely where the real mojo is the people or the decision maker. So more than the decision, I do believe somebody, and 20% of your folks got to be this so-called nimble-footed, absolutely comfortable with mess, and are able to pause, the so-called pause that we are today in, who says, okay, let me just figure out what you were saying, noise and signal. Can I just say, is this a signal or so there's something called neutral zone, mindful neutral zone. So we heard of the strike, air strike in UAE. For us, that's where our maximum, so-called honchos or our real stakeholders sit for the MIA region. It's a pseudo headquarters. And it's so obvious that all the alpha leaders, when they come together, the first is reaction. What are we doing? How are we doing? What are we doing? This whole hassle and hustle. Somebody won, and that 20% in that leadership has to say, hold on, let's pause. Let's just listen and wait for that hours to go. And in 48-hour situation was different. So I think the first very important need is who in this group of decision makers, direct or indirect, have the audacity, courage, and the composure to say, let's just pause. Let's just see where will it go. Let's not shake in the vibrancy and vibration of how the news are vibrating. And with every change of the hour of the news, we vibrate, which happens. Sometimes this was recognized as a trait one was proud of as leaders, the ability to quickly get into this aggressive, intense do mode. And I think we really need people who say, okay, in Marathi, you say, thamba tumi. Just pause. And I have responded to currency fluctuations. We know Turkey's story. It's gone. Egypt is another devaluation story. For us, KSA, which is Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, has another very unique challenge of Saudiization, which then ends up having as employers a huge challenge. Every employee which is skilled, we pick up. We got to pick up a local who's probably not skilled. GCC probably would deal with it. Now, the decisions that you take in all of these, the one characteristic quality, A, the ability to pause and say, let's just neutralize. For a few hours, of course, it's a calibrated one, but you got to, so that everybody can process what they have to. Number two is the nimble-footedness to what he said, deciding how would you do a massive transformative decision of let go your ego to deal with what is must. The electricity must come at the home. It may not serve you the cake on the table, but is electricity, are you getting lit? How do you declutter from essentials to good to have? That is a judgment story. No book teaches, no great seasoned leadership teaches. It comes from a very simple knack, which is intuitive capabilities, cognitive capabilities. And coming from HR, I do believe today that's where the velocity is. If you can get some people in your team who knows the worst is about the company will shut down tomorrow, but they have the wherewithals to start it next month. And if that is nothing but this ability to take a decision in that sense of void of, and re-anchoring, I think you've got to be less than ideal. And if you can empower the so-called ground workforce soldiers to say you're allowed to do, as long as 20% of the company DNA for multinationals such as ours, if you can keep the ethics space clean, please go all out and do what you think is right. I think this is where you genuinely get the characters coming up and warriors coming up. And for decisions in this kind of complex world, you need folks who can do that.
Yeah, I think we are very much more complicated than you guys because we are the money managers. We manage money, very large money, which is some 4 lakh crores. It's difficult in the sense that we invest companies like yours, and we have to get closer to the management to understand what exactly the complexity in terms of our portfolio companies. We work both listed and unlisted. Listed is somewhat okay in the sense that channel checks, especially in FMCG, we do a lot of channel checks. We also look at integrated management in the sense that when I'm going through crisis, are they trying to tell the true story or not? For example, we had a huge supply chain disruption in automotive companies. The chip issue started off, and the first thing I think we get the denial from the management, and after that they start accepting it. So it all depends on that complexity for us. So for us, we manage almost 450 companies in the listed space on the portfolio side, and we get much more complicated than you guys because we are across about 26 sectors. We invest much a large money of investors. From an investor perspective, also it gets much more complex. Their expectation is that you are the champions, I give money, you please deliver. And what we do is that we give money to you guys and you buy equities or participate on the fixed income side. Things are a bit more complicated for us. So what we do in this scenario is that uh, when I look at last 30 years of investing, I think complexity has increased in the companies what we invest. But I think only thing in India corporates have changed, especially Indian corporates, is that disclosure norms have changed. Is it because you come and disclose that I have this pain because of X, Y reason? Uh, that also because the regulator is pushing. The regulatory framework of Indian corporates are getting changed pretty fast there. So for us, that's the complexity of what we do. So what we do in this situation is that our objective is to be nearer to the assumptions what we do before we try to invest, and ongoing process of monitoring you guys becomes much more complex, especially when you have a organization has multiple origination points, and India is very complex in that sense, especially the industry you come in. FMC is much more complicated, right? India is pretty large, divided between urban and rural. So we have so much of complications there. So we try to be very closer. So what we try to do is that much more senior analysis. We do so much of senior analysis. Like every day 8:30 in the morning, we get together and think about what's happening. Why is this company has disclosed this way? Then there is a channel checks happens. A lot of forensic type of uh, investigation we do. If there is any issues we ought to see. I think for us, it's much more complicated when you manage money. Then one other thing for a CEO is that I have to manage my own P&L. The boardrooms have changed today. The boardrooms, I don't want to sign off any of the business plan. They're asking, give me three choices, four choices. And the best of the choices is the highest, highest number delivered. Given this complexity, you still try to think about saying that you need to be very closer to the assumption. I think that's what we do.
So what do you do? You go back to the original contracting space of assumptions, or because you're already making that regular traction, so you keep going back to reference and say, listen, these were your basics, these are your fundamentals, and we will ensure that at least you're afloat.
Yeah, I think India has also become much more, promoters are much more conscious about shareholders now. It was not that earlier. I think, so in that sense, they're open about conversation in terms of how the business is doing. They're able to deliver or give out some numbers given the regulatory framework. And we have another biggest problem is the way regulator looks at us, because we are managing the public money, which is almost 4 lakh crores. It's a pretty large money we manage. So the regulator also during these situations where there is a black swan event, he gets into our life and say what you can't do and what you can do. The fundamentally my view is that the complexities of businesses are becoming much more complex. I think the two ways to look at it is that usual problem earlier is that I solve this problem by hiring more people. And there is one more solution we come and tell in the boardrooms is that board will come and tell us that the solution you can do AI.
The silver bullet for everything.
Everything is AI. And the my one down CXO's problem is that give me more people, I'll solve it. So uh, because the complexities have increased, I don't blame each other. Both are good enough. So I think it's a choice you make, and the choice has implication on your businesses. I think that gets more complex for us, very extremely complex. Saturday morning, RBI will come and talk about changes in the currency, the way we trade. And we are looking and saying, okay, our portfolio will have few thousand crores of losses. And what do we do? There are some bankers ran to RBI on a Saturday and sat in front of them, please give us a respite. because a huge mark-to-market losses you get. So these are sometimes very, very high pressure for you, and you just are helpless because they're also taking a decision. The regulators are taking decisions which are very, very bold. I think across the world it is happening. And my only simple takeaway is that all this complication happens because across last 2 decades, uh, politicians have become much stronger than bureaucracy. And they complicate this world because they want to win elections. And most of the political parties are majoritarian, in the sense they have a majority, and the oppositions are lesser. You tend to push their agenda, and the world gets much more complicated.